From your point of view, what is this Friday all about?
This is the first, test for the year. Obviously, we've done a lot of work since we got here, August 19th or 20th or whenever we arrived. We've done a ton of work. So some of the kids got a little bit of a test up in Vermont, but this weekend for Coast to Coast is really the test for our guys that'll carry us through this year anyway.
I would guess between this and Paul Short, these are one of the two best fields that you'll see during the regular season.
Yeah, the men's schedule is particularly tough, going from Coast to Coast to Paul Short to pre-nats. The women get a little break in there. Instead of going to pre-nats, they go to Princeton, which is still a pretty good meet. But this is a real test for both teams this weekend to really see how we stack up with everybody that's coming in this weekend, and a couple of top 5 teams in the country. It'll certainly be, you'll know where you stand pretty quickly after Friday.
Is that why you schedule this? You say, we need a test at this time of the year, we need a measuring stick?
Yeah, and obviously convenience is part of it too. It's the best cross-country meet in New England, and probably, one of the best of this entire weekend, and it happens to be 35 minutes from campus. So sometimes the schedule picks you as well. When you can sleep in your own bed and leave here at 11:30 and go down there and race Washington and Wake Forest and, Eastern Michigan, etc., Syracuse, that's a pretty nice perk to being in this area.
This is our first test, first measuring stick. Comes pretty early in the year, really. Are we ready for it? I know you've taken my observation was you've taken a much more aggressive approach to practice and just getting ready. Are we ready? Yeah,
we'll find out. I mean, historically, we haven't run great at this meet. It's not a meet that we've excelled at, which is fine. I mean, last year, we didn't run a good team race until the end of October. I think a little of that was immaturity. Just a lot of young, sophomores and younger guys that we were counting on last year. Obviously besides Paul, everybody's pretty much back that was in that, top 5 or 6 guys. So I'm hoping with maturity we can start off a little stronger than we did last year and still finish up the way we did last year, having our best races, our last 2 races of the year.
Is it also kind of an opportunity to see who's ready? As you mentioned, Paul's not here on the men's side. See who's ready to take over kind of the responsibilities of leadership. And
yeah.
I suppose on the women's side, similarly question.
Yeah, no, certainly I think we have enough guys, that are now juniors or seniors, whether they're in their 4th or 5th year as juniors or seniors, between Chris Alfond and Lamb and, even Derrickson getting to be, an upperclassman now. And then on the women's side, obviously Kaylee's, and Nicole, the 2 big leaders on the women's side. And, leadership really hasn't been a problem. And, and not that they're better or, worse than Paul, but they're different. Paul wasn't a big verbal guy, and, Chris and Lamb and those guys are much more verbal with the team than those other people. And same with Nicole and Kaylee, a little bit different leadership, but it doesn't make it bad or good. It's just a little different.
I know we've talked about how much depth we have. Is this the first time you really get to see if we really have the depth we believe we have?
Yeah, particularly on the men's side. I think the women's side, we have a lot of talent. It's just really, really young. I think we're probably a year away from having a really good women's team. So this year will be a little interesting. On the men's side, this is as deep as we've ever been. If you just go by track talent and what they've achieved, a kid like Danny Cosgrove, who's probably not a lot of people are thinking of, but was, top 3 or 4 finisher at the America East Outdoors, and is in the best shape of his life right now. So it'll be interesting to see where they kind of all fit in after this weekend, and obviously it's still one step. Some of them are going to have good days, some are going to have bad days. It's not going to change, what we're going to do here for the next month, but it's just good to get a measuring stick a little bit.
When Friday is over, how do you measure success? Obviously, if the team wins, okay, it was successful.
Yep.
But I'm sure the question of measuring success goes a lot deeper than that. How do you measure, in your mind, that we've been successful?
I think it's going to be who we're competitive with. Whether we beat them or not. There's 10 or 12, really good teams at this meet. Out of the 22 or 24 teams that are there, 10 or 12 of them are very, very good. If we can be competitive and be somewhere in the top 10, that would be a pretty successful debut. And if we can do that, we'll be happy. On the women's side, we'll be down a couple kids. I think, just fighting a couple little things. Our top two kids probably are not racing this weekend. So we're just going to look to get a few kids experience and, just kind of see where we are and see where we'd be if we place those two kids in there,
I should not ignore the fact that we also run on Saturday down at UMass Dartmouth.
Yep.
What is Saturday all about for the coaching staff?
Yeah, Saturday we took all of our freshmen, even though probably if this was a championship meet, a couple of our freshmen we probably place in the top 10, at least one, if not two, into that top 10 group. But we chose to pull them all out and bring them down to UMass Dartmouth and not quite throw them in the deep end of the pool just yet if we don't have to. And I think in 2 weeks, and certainly at pre-nats, a few of them will be, facing some really stiff competition. But we figured this weekend try to break them in a little bit slower and get them going. And then we have two women who, pretty talented kids, Julia and Juliana, who, aren't quite, they've never run a cross-country race in their life, so we didn't really want their first one to be, a situation where we had 3 or 4 nationally ranked teams in the field. So we're taking down to UMass Dartmouth just to get a little experience under their belt and, both freshman eligibility. So, we'll kind of see what happens with them, but we would expect them to be in our top 5 to 7, by the end of the year.
How much, you mentioned it with UMass Dartmouth, for someone's getting experience, how much for those running on Friday is there also that getting experience in a tough field? While we don't think of it as a contact sport,
Yep.
We know enough that you get boxed in. There are times you got to battle through. How much of Friday also is about just having that experience?
Yeah, fortunately, we've done a good job of traveling a lot of those kids to a lot of big meets. But, it's been over a year since Chris Alfon ran a cross-country race, and I think for him, getting back out there and getting re-experienced, I guess, is, if that's a word, will be really important for him. And I think just the first experience for every season is different. It's being uncomfortable for 24, 25 minutes is a lot different than what they're used to on the track, unless you're a 10,000 meter runner. Derek's been used to being uncomfortable for 3 minutes or 14 minutes. Now it's being uncomfortable for 25 minutes. So I think every year that first meet is kind of a new experience for a lot of the guys, just to get used to being out there. The women not being out there quite as long, and this one for 5,000 meters is really good for them. Before we get into some 6,000 meter races, it's nice to break in, this first one at 5,000 meters. I think, it's a nice way to break in instead of being out there for an extra, 3 or 4 minutes. They're out there for, 18 or so minutes, which I think is a good way to start for them.
And I guess finally, as you mentioned, the convenience, the 35 minutes away, it's a good field. Is Franklin Park a good course for the cross-country experience?
Yeah, it's a course that, 10 years ago, all these high school kids had run it a million times, and now there's probably a little more unknown with it, where, 10 years ago, all the state championships were at Franklin Park, and now they're not there. I think our kids probably enjoy going there more because they haven't been there 50 times. So I think it's a great venue. It's a good spectator venue where you can stand in one spot and see them 6 or 8 different times, which is pretty cool. There's not a lot of places that you can do that, and they've done a really nice job setting up that course, when they built it, and it's really stood the test of time. And I think it's a great venue to spectate, and it's got a little ups, little downs, and some woods, some paths, some fields, and I think it's a good combination course where it's not easy and it's not hard. I guess my best description, it's a fair course.